That was a great introduction. First and foremost, first I would like to say thank to Curtis because for me this is a full circle moment. I remember being in the locker room and coming into tryouts, and we had workouts at Suitland High School back when I was 12, 13 years old. So to be sitting here now, coaching, kind of back in the same realm, it's a full circle moment. So thank you for your mentorship, your leadership, and for telling your truth. First and foremost, being honest with people and to hear the story. So I think the title resembles a lot about you and what you've been able to do and overcome. So I'm grateful to be here. I think this is kind of crazy for me to sit here talking to Curtis, and thanks for coming.
No, I appreciate you. And of course, you are one of the many guys that motivated me to do what I did with helping kids. These guys played a very, very important part of my career with helping and changing lives of young men. And, again, I'm honored to be able to have you as a person in my program and with us getting back to this. He's one of the first people I call for him to come back and give back again, So I appreciate you
Yeah.
for helping me along the way.
No, and I'm excited to get back. So let's bring it back a little bit. So DC Assault is now a brand. This is 2.0 DC Assault, as we would say. And to build up DC Assault, how did that come about? I think a lot of people want to know. He mentioned how DC Assault became the biggest brand, the biggest AAU program, and it was for many reasons in terms of talent, in terms of what we were able to establish. How did you develop that, and how did that come about? What was the reason behind starting an AAU program for you?
Well, for me, I think that just wanting to help youth in our city during the 90s, DC was a pretty rough place. And I had so many ties to the inner city, to the projects, to so many people that when I got into the basketball world, after playing or trying to play a little bit, which that didn't work out, but I wanted to give back and just help kids. And I had no idea I would end up having guys like you, McDonald's All American, one of the best players in the country, in my program. So for me, it was just wanting to give back and help kids and change lives. See 10 guys on the corner, two of them play for it, they going to college. So it was just about giving back, man. And I had no idea it would end up being
What it
as
was?
good as it was.
So growing up, you through and through from here. If anybody read this book, we know Missouri Avenue was a very important part of your childhood and your upbringing. How did growing up in D.C. before you came to Palmer Park, before you moved out to Maryland, how did that shape you as a human, and even to this day?
Well, I tell you, growing up uptown and in Northwest, and my ties were still there. But then moving to Maryland, to Palmer Park, it was Southeast itself. So nothing really changed. You know what I mean? It was like you moving, the name of the state changed, but the city, DC to Maryland. But Palmer Park was it was Ward 9.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't a big difference. It all just it was easy to adjust. Back in the day, everybody say, "Oh, y'all out Maryland, you moved to
Right.
Maryland," because DC, they always think they the best at everything,
Right.
coming up. But it wasn't a big change at all.
And one thing I read from your book in the early stages is that you had a lot of mentors. You had a lot of people that were supportive of you and raising you the right way, trying to show you a great, just something to inspire to be and try to keep you on the straight and narrow. Talk about that. Talk about the people that help you shape you as a young age to get to the stage that you are now.
Yeah, well, again, growing up, I was always a listener. I would take heed to whoever gave me good advice. And I used those mentors from my high school coach to, guys I call my uncle, my father's friends, from the drug dealers in the neighborhood. They were all big brothers and father figures to me. We didn't know no better what they were doing, but they wanted you to do the right thing. So, so many of those things helped me along the way, which is why I gave back too. So, I had great mentoring, man. My high school coach, I mean, he was unbelievable, man. And I didn't want to listen,
Right.
but as I got older now, I'm him all over again. I'm Mr. Freeman
Right.
in my book. You know what I mean? So I'm hard on the kids. You know how I
Yeah.
am. And, I use all those guys who helped play a part in my life. It helped round me to be who I was later on in life with guys like you.
One thing I can say, Curtis, is that throughout reading your book, you always had a vision. You always had an idea of where you wanted to be. Whether it's I like this guy, I like his style, or I want to get into the agent game, or I want to become a coach, or whatever it was. You had a vision and an insight to something in the future. And I think it's very prophetic in a way. In a lot of things that you did in terms of signing a deal with Adidas at that time, going to different places, putting people in different scenarios. How did you formulate that kind of mindset to think in a lot of ways outside of the box when it came to helping kids, to being a mentor to these kids? Because you were across with a lot of different situations. We're not even talking about the street culture. We talking about just as a coach, as a man, as a leader, as a person. How do you develop that?
Well, again, it started with not being a follower. That was number one. I always wanted to be a leader. I was always taught leadership skills. I always wanted to be a leader. Nothing you could do to make me follow. So I think early on, I was always a leader. So for me, I always said to myself, in my neighborhood, the best person came out of our neighborhood was Sugar Ray Leonard. So I felt like I'm going to be the next best guy from this neighborhood. So I learned the business side of everything. I started to see, well, here I am doing A, B, and C with these kids, 12, 13, 14 years old. And when they get in college, they go to the NBA. The guy come along with the suit on
Right.
and represent them and make millions of dollars. Well, why can't I be the agent? So my vision was always the business side of everything. So for me, like I said, just not wanting to be a follower. I wanted to just lead by example, you know.
No, I think that's important. Now, I think it's important for people when they read the book is to understand that time period that you were in. Let's talk about what it was like in DC, what it was like in Palmer Park at that time period, which is we ain't look like this.
No.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't the same type of field and had the same type of energy. How did that culture and the surroundings influence you to to be who you are?
Well, I think, one thing about our city here, I think we have one of the most dynamic places in the country. Um, so everything from I remember this library not looking like this, coming down here and I mean, I remember this. All we knew was Martin Luther King Library, right? Or we getting books from the bookmobile, right? So we had the library uptown. I mean, it's probably a corner of this room, but I think that you adjust to what your city is. You become you just learn to adjust to what's going on in the place that you grew up in. So everything was smooth. I mean, we got the best city in the world at the end of the day.
I
You
agree.
know what I mean? So
Right. So also I read and I think part of the double life that comes in is how go-go, which is not anything negative, how it influenced you.
yes.
How much it influenced you from I don't know. I can't remember bands that you were saying in the joint. I don't want to miss who you said was the biggest band. You listen to Rare Essence a lot,
Yes.
and how that influence in that time period and go-go bands were the culture.
Yes.
And I still believe they are. It's just different now.
Yes.
But that influence and that style, how that became part of you.
Well, the go-go itself has always been very, very different, right? So,
How would you categorize go-go?
just a bunch of beating buckets, but it's unique. It's
Right,
different from
right.
everywhere else in the country. It's our own thing. Same way rap took off in New York back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, right? I mean, it was just a different thing. I mean, when you went to the go-go, it just made people come together. Like it was family. Okay, you from Southeast, I'm from Northwest, I'm from Palmer Park, you from Kentland.
Right.
It made you come together as one, right? I mean, the neighborhoods fought, we disagreed, but when it came time, I mean, it made you humble yourself to be together.
Right.
You know, so it played a very, very, it was very important to me because again, it taught me how to bring people together. You know, the go-go was, you won when you're there. You know, so for me, everything I wanted to do, I wanted to make it one. I wanted to make it a whole. You know.
And that's one thing you said, something that resonates with me, and why I came back and said, yeah, Kurt, I'm all in with you, is because I watch. I'm a very visual person, and to see how you work a room, to see how you connect with everybody, even though I'm like, man, why you even talking to this client? But you make it seem like you make people feel comfortable.
Yes.
You make people feel welcome. You know, and that's a trait that I think that you possess when it comes with loyalty, that you speak highly on, respect. And I think those are certain things and aspects that a lot of this generation can learn from, because we have a lot of, there's some universal laws that we don't have anymore, you know, in terms of loyalty, in terms of respect and honor people above you, not stealing. Those are things, the principles that I got from you. And understanding that, and understanding, I think that's helped you become back to being who you are and being respected in the space that you're in. And so when you think about that, and you think about the culture that was presented at the time, you think about the go-go music, you think about the influence you have, it seemed like it was almost a natural thing for you to live a double life and be around the people that you were in. I got the feeling that from reading the book, you try to do everything not to be in a double life, not to live that life, but it just, because of the surrounding, because of the atmosphere, it led you
Yeah.
into the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that when you get out of something and it's your environment you grew up in, it does become a natural thing. You just got to be able to say yes or no. At the end of the day, you got to be able to select the right people. You got to be able to walk away from things. But for me, it's been my personality is, you know, I love everybody.
Right.
I can't tell nobody no. I want to help the world. I want to save the world. That's just Curtis. But, it's hard to live that both of those lives now. It gets tough. It may look smooth, but it gets tough. It got tough. You know what I mean?
So, I mean, you got into the game. You got into it serious, and it was something that I guess was appealing. It was probably something that was very alluring to do. If you had to do it all over, and with how things played out, is it the same decisions you would make? Do you think you made the right decision? I mean, not even you made the right decisions.
No, I definitely don't think I made the right decision. Not at all. Not at all.
But that's a duplicity, because it with that decision, you helped out a lot of folks.
Yeah, yeah, but I wish I could have told a lot of folks no.
Okay.
Right? You can't put too much on your plate. And I think I did that. My wife now, she, you can't say the world, Curtis, like, but I want to,
Right.
but I can't make that decision to go back and do nothing stupid. So, again, it's tough to be able to do that, man. Decisions I wouldn't I would make the decision different now.
Okay, and I understand that. Now you write this book. Why do you decide now is the right time to write this book?
Well, once I got incarcerated, right? I think reading everything from the Washington Post, being on the cover of the Washington Post magazine, and everybody, one thing about when you go to prison and you're waiting to be found guilty or not guilty, everybody paint the picture, right? So I just wanted people to know how I got to where I got. You know what I mean? From as a kid to older. And it's bumps in life. You know what I mean? But I wanted to tell my story. I want everybody to know Curtis. You know what I mean? And I think from the book, it gave you a real picture of who I was, and I did bad things, but I don't believe I was a bad person. I'm not not at all a bad human being, but I did bad things.
Correct.
You know.
Yeah. No, so that's what I got out from the book. I just think that it was important, especially from my standpoint. You know, I was one of your players, so I was close to it
Yes.
indirectly. You know what I mean? I don't know nothing. I'm playing basketball. I'm worrying about guarding OJ Mayo and whoever else tomorrow. But so I don't know what's going on. But as you look back on it, you kind of see like, damn, Curtis had the same 6 folks around him all the time. You know what I'm saying? It was things of that nature that now you look back. But to be able to play both fields and to be able to have command of both fields is something that I respected without knowing. So one thing that I took from the book was your discipline in that life. You ran it like a Fortune 500 company. It was not something that was just it was messy or was like not organized. Why was that so important to you?
Well, again, anything I chose to do from DC Assault to I've always focused on trying to do it the right way.
Right.
But again, it did get sloppy. You know, that's one of the reasons I went to prison.
Right.
And you get content. You get comfortable with anything you do. You
Right.
know what I mean? If you can walk in here and get a bottle of water off this counter every day, and there's 5 bottles on the counter, you're gonna come in here every day before you go upstairs and grab a bottle when you know it ain't yours.
Right. Right.
So for me, um, it got sloppy.
Right.
What you all didn't see,
Right.
I seen, and then when you up down that street at that court building, and you start reading the stuff and seeing the investigation, it got sloppy.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, and if we okay, so I'm jumping around a little bit, but I want to go back to DC Assault and the start of DC Assault and how that came about. Um, well, not even that. I want to talk about Sonny Vaccaro and his influence on you and how it came about. So first, if anybody knows, this was Team Reebok. You guys had aerial assaults. I don't know nothing about
Yeah,
that. That was a whole. I don't know if anybody understands. If we read the book, they had some sneakers called the Aerials, correct?
Aerial assault.
Area assaults, and it was a company that went out of business.
Yes.
And
Didn't
you
last.
guys and didn't last, and you guys eventually left Ariel and went to Reebok,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
And then after leaving Reebok, you get a connection to Sonny
We
Vaccaro.
went to Nike.
Went to Nike, excuse me.
Yes.
And
Went to
Troy had an issue with
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
you know
Went
that
to
was
Nike.
it went to
Yeah.
Nike and did a few things with Nike, but eventually landed with Sonny.
Yes.
Who is Sonny Vaccaro, and why is his as a person, him as an entity, so important to you?
Well, I thought I'd got in bed with the mafia. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, I went to my first meeting and everybody's in there talking and he started hitting the glass with a spoon. I'm like, oh, this is this is the Godfather right here, right? So it, I wanted to be a part of him because coming from where I come from, I meet with Nike and George Ravlin, and they like square guys. They the perfect guys. But then when you meet Sonny Vaccaro, I'm like, oh man.
Right.
But he taught me so much, and I wanted to be
Correct.
him because I seen his success.
Right.
Right. So, yeah. But it was team us Ariel Assault. Them shoes, they didn't last but a year, and we named the team Team Assault. People thought that we named the team because we used to beat people all the time and fight. And, I had kids move Southeast and I had knuckleheads, I must admit, but they made DC Assault what it was, you know what I mean? But then we was Team Reebok. Some of y'all are too young, but there was a commercial back in the day called Planet Reebok with Spike Lee. Remember that?
Oh,
So
no.
Sam Cassell gave us Reebok shoes. So our name was whoever sponsored us.
Right. Right.
Right. We did. If your name Pastor Dave and you give us a check, we're gonna be Team Pastor Dave.
Right.
So, from there we end up kicking butts.
Right.
Every event we went to, we made a name by ourselves. Even though the name switched, when we want to go get in the tournament, they like, what's your name this year, Kurt? And I'm like, okay, this year we're Planet Reebok, right? So after that, we went to Nike, had him in, and so blessed that John Thompson, Big John, I went to see him at the office, and and he wanted some players I had. He thought they were really good, and I said, Coach, I need sponsorship. He Called on the phone, called George Raveling and said, hey man, I need you to take care of my guy. And we had a Nike deal that there wasn't much. It wasn't much, but we were Nike. And then from there, I met with Sonny Vaccaro, and we took off, from there.
And Sonny, just to give background on Sonny Vaccaro, he was a big Nike rep for 20 some years, built up the grassroots level of Nike, and now at the time that you're meeting him is trying to take the same and duplicate the same thing with Adidas.
Yes.
So at this time, and we kind of bounce around, you get Delonte Hill, you have Delonte who's now just one. Shout out to Delonte, DJ, and Nolan for winning at Tennessee State, winning a conference championship this year.
Yeah.
Definitely shout out. But the beginning of I would say DC Assault started with Delonte.
Yeah,
Correct?
Delonte and a guy named, guys like Frank
Frank
McQueen and kid Willie Bullock that played at McNamara. End up, those guys really good players. But Mike Pegues,
Mike Pegues, yep.
the map
Bullock.
guys. We had a guy on our team. I don't know if you all remember this. Joe, what was his name? Wiley played at DeMatha. He's like
We talking too many DeMatha guys in here, man.
He's-
That's true.
Charles Wiley, yeah. Damon Owens, from Bowie. So, those guys started it.
Right.
Ed Sheffy.
Ed Sheffy,
Yeah,
Ed the Jewish Shell. So, and that's good to hear John Thompson looked out, because you always like to hear, God bless the dead, and hear good things about Coach Thompson. But starting out that team, you had talent from the beginning.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I think a big part of your story is Troy Weaver.
Yes.
And how important was Troy and yourself and your dynamic, and Troy's now an executive for the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
How important was that dynamic in order to build and have the trust of parents and Delonte and eventually DJ?
Well, during that time, to be honest, I don't know if there were any parents around. Back then, you go to a home, the grandmother would be like, just get them off this corner. I don't care where you take them, So, but me and Troy and, of course, Mike Sumner and Mike Brown and, we created something. And again, we didn't know it was going to be that big, but Troy was the good cop. I was the bad cop. So we complimented each other so much, right? The kids love him, but then the kids hate him because Troy is, him, serious. And the kids love me to death, right? So we did a great job together as a team. And the success really started over at Columbia Park Rec.
Columbia Park Rec. And we sitting back here before we started this, and we talking about Nolan winning the OVC. I'm hyped. That's my teammate. We going to school together and all that. And he said, yeah, I'm really happy for Delonte and DJ though.
Yeah.
And so talk about how Delonte and DJ, why they were so important and why you feel so excited for them at this stage.
Well, I mean, of course, Delonte Hill went through a tough time when he was over at Maryland. So again, that's my godson. I took him in at 13, 14. We became very, very close. Mother pretty much like take him, So for me, coming up in my background, I'm not the person that's going to judge anybody. So if you fall, I'm going to have your back 100%, because nobody's perfect. People make mistakes. Sometimes people make mistakes 3 or 4 times. But I'm not the guy that's going to kick you down. I'm going to help you as best I could. So when Nolan got the job, my biggest thing is, okay, you're going to take Delonte and DJ with you. Right? Those are your brothers, because with Nolan being my son and DJ and Delonte, so this is family, you know what I mean? And that's my thing. I like to build things up, and again, now looking at them win a championship, but it was so important to have Delonte because his experience, and he's been one of the top assistant coaches in college basketball. He made some mistakes, and it's hard to get back from that, and it's all about who's gonna give you a chance, man. And sometimes we don't help each other, man. We don't help each other. It's so easy to judge someone, and you can't take away what he's done and how good he's been. But again, I was just happy to see those kids doing what they do.
Then you got DeMar Johnson. DeMar Johnson was maybe the first elite top #1 prospect that you had. Delonte was a big time player. He had a amazing prospect coming up. But then you got DeMar Johnson, which is, if anybody doesn't know, DeMar was Kevin Durant before Kevin. This guy, he had all the tools. I remember watching DJ and just being amazed at somebody. This is the first guy I saw that was 6'9" that actually moved like a 5'10", 5'11" guy. And it was fluid, it was easy, it was, in a way, it's very elegant the way he played. He had a one right to left crossover, left to right crossover, and he's pulling from 40 feet. Talk about how the game changed once you got DeMar Johnson and how that took DC Assault to another level.
Yeah, well, I mean, getting DJ, a kid that wasn't playing high school at the time, was at Bladensburg High School, I think all E's and F's, and I went down Watts Playground, and Kurt Smith called me to come and see him, and I'm like, "Who you play for?" He like, "Nobody." I was like, "You want to play?" You're like, "Yeah," and I'm looking like nobody had this kid. I'm like, "Wow," and from there, it went up from there. But he was special, man. He was before his time. If he played today, because Kevin gonna be able to play 20 years because he shoots
Easy.
ball.
Yeah, easy.
Shoot it, but DJ was before his time, and a kid like him would still be playing. He was just so talented, man, and unfortunately didn't have a career he should have had. Or,
Right.
He had an bad accident, which, caused his career to not be as good as.
But even before we get that, how did that change DC Assault and the
Oh, well.
perception of the program and now getting these guys? Now what comes about? Now you the head of DC Assault. You're trying to build this brand. You running around. You trying to pay for gas and all this stuff, doing whatever you got to do for kids. Now you get DeMar Johnson. So what's the conversations now with these reps? What's the conversation now with whoever? Because now everybody's coming. How does that change? How did that change the landscape?
Well, the conversations with Sonny Vaccaro got real good.
Right.
I take him up to ABCD, and I go to the bathroom, and I hear the people out there yelling, "Wow!" And I come back out there, it was like, "Kurt, you missed DJ, just dunked on the team, man." And from there, I mean, Sonny, we became the best program in the country. I got the best player in the country. And I mean, everybody, Nike was ready to go back and negotiate, but then Sonny Vaccaro. But then you got to remember too, I got the #2 player in the country with Keith Bogans.
Bogey, yeah.
So I got #1 and #2 player in the country.
Right.
So I mean, DeMar took, it took us to a whole nother level, man.
But back to being a visionary that you are, you took him out of this first school and put him at Parkdale.
Yes.
Why?
Because I knew the teachers up there in the coach.
Okay.
So it was a situation where he couldn't go somewhere where he's gonna fail.
Right.
I got to make sure he's going to class and handling his business, right?
Right. Were you
so-
afraid of him being in that and being in this environment? Maybe too much of attention or anything? Because DJ is a very mild-mannered guy.
He's so
He's not.
humble. Yeah. It didn't bother me at all. I was, they had a guy over there, Brian Waller, Ice guy from Columbia Park Rec, was teacher over there and the coach. Well, he wasn't a teacher, but he was the coach there. So along with the staff at Parkdale, they made sure DJ was going to get what he was supposed to get to be eligible to play.
Right.
Which they did. And, they didn't give him anything, but they made sure they stayed on top of him to make sure he was eligible to play basketball.
Right. Yeah. DJ was tough, man. DJ had everything from day one. Then you get a kid like Bogans that's in a way similar, but not. You know what I mean? They both are talently, the talent is similar in terms of where they can go and play at the next level. And Bogans went on to play heck of a career. I don't know. He might have did 13, 14, 15 years in the NBA. Now you get Bogan, you got 1 and 2.
Yes.
And what's the difference between these guys in terms of, in terms of how they're being recruited? Because now everybody's thinking DJ, if the rule wasn't the way it was, he's going to the league.
Yes.
He's going straight to league, but there's a different path for Bogans.
Well, one thing for sure I must say, though, with having those two, the meetings with Sonny Vaccaro
Got a lot better.
went back again.
So how them meetings? Let's talk about those meetings for a second. Sonny the man, he Godfather.
Well, it's like, okay, you got DeMar,
Yeah.
bring your Keith Bogus in. We're going to
Right.
do your contract.
Right.
We're going to make sure you're good. Just keep bringing these kids. But they were so different. The difference in Keith and DeMar was a superstar talent. Keith was a great talent, but the difference was I had full-time control because DeMar ended up moving
Right.
with me.
Yeah.
Keith, Keith was in with us, but I still had to fight Morgan Wooten.
Right.
Morgan don't want me to have Keith. Keith got to sneak out of town with us. You know what I mean? So, again, it was the fight. So I didn't have much control over where his school decision and all that.
Right.
But with DeMar, I had control of his situation.
Yeah. Bogans went on to be at Kentucky and had a heck of a career at Kentucky. Went on to have a heck of a career in NBA. So I just wanted to touch on that now. At that time, where are you outside of the game? Now we talk about the double life. Now, how are you being able to manage having elite level players, but still having to manage everything that's going on in the street?
Well, during that time, I retired.
Okay.
I was done with that because, to be honest, I felt like DeMar was, because my vision was always my own agency.
What they doing now?
Of course, I mean,
Exactly what they
there's
doing.
no Rich Paul without
Exactly what
LeBron
Richard doing.
James.
Right.
But again, people seen it different. Then, like, oh, he got this kid, he's making money off of him. But I felt like this is my ticket out. I'm gonna start my company. I'm gonna bring in some people. I'm gonna represent players. And again, I'm doing all the groundwork. Ain't no agent answering the phone at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, where I gotta go down to the police station and pick a kid up.
Right.
Grandmother calling me or aunt calling me, they locked him up. Tiller stole a car from over at the Mather. You know what I mean? Like, I got to deal with that, So I just felt like, why should the guy who haven't done anything make money? Because no matter what, whoever you are, you're going to be represented. Somebody's going to make money off of you. I don't care, especially in entertainment. And, nowadays, I guess, like Jaden Daniels' mom, they agents now. Everybody is somehow going to make money, off of a kid. And it wasn't a negative thing. And DeMar had trust in Curtis. So
Right.
it wasn't nothing Curtis could do wrong but I was out the game because
Right.
I felt like I got to remove myself from that because this is too bright. The future's too bright with what I have going on with having a DeMar Johnson in my house. You're talking about the #1 player in the country.
Right.
Who everybody was saying could be the first player to lead high school in the 11th grade to the NBA.
Right.
So I'm like, I got to remove myself, which I had removed myself away from that life.
So that at that time you remove yourself away from the life. And one thing I read is we keep going further and we don't have a lot of time, but as we keep going on, now we get to the stage of probably your next best prospect of Mike Beasley.
Yes.
And this is when I kind of come into the fold. So it's funny. I remember one day, first day I met Mike. Well, I met him in the gym one time. He's a big, tall dude with these big sandy braids and his long feet, dribbling the bats, just look awkward. You know what I mean? Then we started working out. Me, Nolan, Adrian Bowie, Varro, Sean Hawkins, with Edon.
Yeah.
Besutland. And we started working out with Edon Raven. And I remember the next week we were in the car, me and Nolan, you probably don't remember this, me in the car, and we were driving, and he was like, hey, this guy gonna be with y'all next week. And he came out, he came down the steps, and it's Mike. And Mike was like, hey, Kurt, I'm gonna be with y'all next, I get this off tomorrow. Yeah. I get this off tomorrow. We over for like Sheriff Road or something like that in an apartment. So, yeah, Barry. So,
Apartments, yes.
so now let's talk to, and Mike was a special talent.
Yeah.
Always was special talent, and obviously you played an intricate role in his life. How did Mike Beasley come about, and how did that connection come about to eventually get him introduced to Mike?
Well, you got to remember, Lumpy, I did DeMar Johnson camp up at Bowie.
I was there.
You was there.
I was in there.
Where that was my
Yeah.
That was my recruiting tool. I let all y'all come to camp free because I said I'm gonna get all them.
And it worked.
And
All of us came out right after that.
I got Nola, him,
Yeah.
KD, the only one. He was at the camp.
KD, only one there.
He
Yeah.
come right, but all the other ones, man, he said so. You know, his dad was like, Kurt, after this year, we all in with you. So I got all of them. So that my recruiting tool worked, man.
So it goes back to DJ again. DJ, I remember that camp too. DJ had that basketball camp with Bowie Jim. I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, again, I met Mike, and the crazy part, I was in junior college back in early 90s in Texas, and Mike's dad came on a visit. So I had been knowing Mike's dad and family before he was even
My dad's from here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I asked him, his name Mike Beasley. I said, and Michael Beasley wasn't, he was worse than all of y'all. He wasn't
10 times worse.
he wasn't nowhere near you all,
Yeah.
right? And I asked him at the camp, I said, Mike, what's your father name? He said, Mike. I said, Mike what? He said, Mike Beasley. I said, where he at? He said, in jail. So I said, okay, that's my man. So I'm saying to myself, I got him now. Hey, look, I know the dad. I said, I got him now. So I go to a party, a yard party in Largo somewhere, and I see Mike Beasley. I'm like, Mike, what's up, man? I need your son. He like, you got him. Say no more. He with you. So come to find out, I meet the mom, you know, she like, look, if you can keep him out of trouble, you good. So from there, Mike had a court date. I go to court with him.
Right.
They got the ankle monitor on this thing. I got to speak to the judge. I talk to the court. I go pay his fine down the hall. And from there, you know, y'all was spending time. He had that ankle monitor on. And, you know, Mike was in trouble. Everything he did was trouble. So, you know, I bought into the kid because, again, he was my type of kid that I felt need change, you know. So he bought into it. The mom them did too. And from there, we got him better and better and better and better. But I tell people all the time, Mike couldn't chew and walk at the same time when we got him. So it took a lot of hard people putting in work to get him better. So from there, it was, it was done. We were all in together. He moved in with us. He stayed with us, and he became the best player in the country.
He did. And I think an important thing about that is Mike was not good.
No.
He was not good at all. Like, people don't understand that. Mike was just big and goofy, and I'm not even trying to be funny. This guy we wouldn't see him. He'd get pissed off when he wouldn't play.
Yeah.
We like, Mike, you're not ready to play out there, So I'm interested now, at this time, you've had...
Can I tell you one thing about Mike before you go, Chris? Now, when I met Mike had these big old feet, man. I'm like, God dang. I say, man, what size shoe you wear? He said, a 20. I said, what? He's 14 years old. And these feet, so now I'm with Adidas, so they don't have size 20.
Right.
They got to stretch the shoes. So they start sending me shoes for him, right? So every time I get him, the more I get him, the more he come to the house, hang out. He said, man, I don't wear no 20, Kurt. So I end up, every time his foot hurt, the mother go up on size. His mother would get him a bigger size because he said his foot hurt. I got Shaq sending me shoes size 22. Everything he's saying, man, I don't wear no 22.
Right.
So I said, you know what, man? It's almost a year now. I take him to the store. I said, man, I'm going to get your feet measured. The boy wore 18 shoes, man.
You know the funny part about that, though, Kurt?
He was wearing a 22 shoe. Fatima had that boy wearing.
You know what's crazy about that is? He wore 18, and Nola Smith wore 18, too. And they say,
I'm wearing a 15.
yeah.
I said, boy, and both of them, they couldn't get in the car at the same time. Both of them feet, they were so big, man.
Right.
it was a lot of hard work with agility and stuff, man. 'Cause them jokers, they were so young and they didn't catch up to the feet, man. It was hard, man.
So now you got Mike Beasley now, right? And now you've went through this process of having a top prospect, building up top prospects, understanding what that development process is like. You dealt with the knuckleheads, the guys that gave you trouble on and off the court, the Omar Weavers, the Derek Paynes, and we even get into that and how that
And they're still here.
from those guys. So now you get a Mike Beasley, and now you can hear all the kind of verbiage is, oh man, is Curtis hanging on to this guy just because it's a ticket? How do you deal with that aspect of the surroundings of people and what they can be saying it to you and how they can maybe influence this kid at that age? Not talking once he got to college and all that. I'm talking about this age.
Well, you know, it really didn't bother me because that's what people gonna do. The mother believed in Curtis, right? And she felt Curtis was the person to take her son to the next level. And during that time, many people wasn't doing it at the level we were. So for me, it didn't really bother me because people gonna, no matter what you do, people gonna talk, you know. But when the kid was a young kid and he needed guidance. Now, make no mistake, anything you read or anything you see on the internet about Mike Beasley and you Google him, it was a full-time job. So you know, I say this all the time. Mike got more attention and more
Everybody.
than my own real children
Yeah.
because he was a full-time job.
Right.
You know, with dealing with schools, with moving them, gotta find a new school, it was a full-time job.
You know what, Curtis? And now getting into this game myself and coaching and reading things and being able to follow guys like yourself and see what you guys know, you don't see that type of dedication to kids and that commitment. I'm not knocking everybody. I'm not trying to put anything on it, but I would like to say that that's what's missing in this era. And I think a lot of the NIL, a lot of this, I don't know, media and all this stuff kind of takes away from kids building these relationships because you don't stay with a kid for so long.
Yeah.
You're not able to build with these guys. So now you got Mike Beasley. And Mike Beasley got to shout out Monica, you got to shout out Nolan, and got to shout out Sydney just for their being a village behind them and supporting them. Now this kid now is the time where you put in all the work, we about to go to the league, then what happens?
Well, again, I always say, man, money is the root of all evil, man. As soon as people see money, it change people. You know, it make people see things differently. You know, again, for me, the difficult part is, see, I don't forget where I come from, no kind of way. There's not a crackhead, a heroin, dope fiend, addict down here. If I run into that, I'm not gonna hug and give my number to and be in your corner any kind of way I could. So for me, it was devastating because, you know, people started to get in the kid ear, the mother ear. You know, I started to see family members I hadn't seen in 5 years since he was at my house. You know, uncles from Jersey, aunts from New Jersey. I mean, so again, you know, with DeMar, it tried to happen, but DeMar was like, no, if it ain't for him, I ain't where I'm at. So ain't nobody coming in between this right here. And to today, he still is
Say what?
my son, you know. But with Mike, man, it turned into a show.
Right.
You know, and to be honest to this, I feel bad, you know, for the kid, you know,
Right.
and I'm still poor Curtis, you know what I mean?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I feel bad that this kid should be worth $300-400 million, man.
I have this every time I see Mike, I'm like, dang, you don't even know. You know what I mean? I just like it was so much more that could have been squeezed out of it because you had the right infrastructure and things just, didn't matriculate. And I think it's important to understand, and now you coming back in this game, how you see the game now. How's the game evolved? And there's so much more things I want to get to in terms of just the aging game and how that works and how that works in AAU and all that, but we don't have time. But coming back into the game now, and how do you see the AAU circuit now? How do you envision DC Assault, and what do you see taking this in the next 5 years or whatever?
Well, the game, the game is still the game. It's the players you recruit the best players you want. We wear this on our chest, so it's very important to recruit the best coaches, the best players, the best. But now I look at things totally different because I now look at the parents I recruit. You know what I mean?
And parents more involved now. I'm
Parents are
assuming.
much more
Right.
involved, but so for me, it's certain things I'm not gonna uh, accept. I run a tight ship. Um, the kid been on every team in the area. He done left all the AAU teams. He been to 5 high schools. I don't want that kid.
Right. Right.
I don't want that parent because if this is what you allow your child to do, to me you setting them up for failure.
Right.
So I mean, I'm way more back then. I took anybody, any parent, any kid. I wanted to change a life.
Right.
But now it's just totally different being older. And that's why I have guys like you to deal with the headaches.
Yeah.
So so I'm trying to issue more responsibility on y'all. And 10 years from now, I could walk away from this thing and it's y'all. Y'all can have it, but it's changed. But again, it's more parents, way more involved now, which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. But again, it's changed, but you adapt to every situation. And I think it's easy to do. It's easy.
Yeah, I think because you're able to you've seen so many different phases of the game, so many different phases of life, and dealing with so many people that coming back into this space is not necessarily something that's like, even though it's a new type of era in terms of NIL and it's not something that takes you back, takes you back or takes you to another place or something that's overwhelming. I don't think. Overall, I look at the book and what it presented and how it helped me get a better understanding of you. It helped me to be a better coach for DC Assault. It helped me to be a better person to communicate with people. You can learn from so much from this book. Why the name Duplicity?
Well, I mean, it's I'm telling the kids to do one thing, and I'm over here doing the same thing that I'm telling you not to do, living a lie, a double life. For me, and what really struck me was when I was over DC jail and I'm going down the hallway with shackles on me and former players talking about, Coach, what you doing here? Oh man. Yeah, I'm telling you jokers not to do this and do that. And 2 of my former players is at DC jail with me. I said, wow, I lived a hell of a double life, man. And these kids thought the world of me, man. And they put me on a pedestal. And I'm like, wow, I done let so many people down, man. And, for a while, it took me a while to lift my head up. I ducked my head for a while, but I said to myself, man, I got to get up, man, at the end of the day.
No, I would like to say I personally have the utmost respect for you for what you've been able to accomplish, what you've been able to do. I saw you inside. I saw, I was visiting. I was there. I saw hers, So I understand and I respect the ability to continue to get up.
Yes.
Continue to put one foot in front of the other and leave a lasting impression. So I thank you for writing this book and telling your story. I think we all get a piece of who you are.